Okay, so to answer the question, should you buy property now, we need to understand where the market is currently. What's the current situation? What's the picture? And that will give you a bit of a better understanding on whether to stick or twist. Now, little spoiler alert, I always think it's feasible to invest in property if you're buying it at the right price, regardless of the market conditions and where you are in the economic cycle. For example, let's just say, as I'm coming on to very shortly, we're in a slight decline, prices are going down. But if you're able to secure a property at 60% of its market value, then that's actually a really safe investment. You've got a large margin for error, you've got a very large margin of safety, and if prices decrease 20%, which I think is feasible, then you're still actually in a positive transaction. So if you were to sell that property, say, at 80% or even less, 75% of its value when you purchased it, you're still actually making a profit from that property, right? Don't concern yourself with the market conditions too much. If you've got a really good deal on the table and you're buying significantly below market value, that itself is a great way to de-risk the investment and to exclude the current market conditions. And especially if you're in it for the long run, if you're not flipping in 6, 12 months, if you're in it for the long run, the 5, 20, 30, 40 years, then it's a great time to buy, really, because, if you're looking to sell that property on in the long run or refinance it in the long run or medium run, then values would have picked up. You can pull, some of your cash out, if not all your cash, and move on to the next property. So market conditions. So I read something on BBC by Nationwide that house prices fell 1.4% in November 2022, and this is the biggest drop in 2 years. Now, of course, it makes it sound like it's really scary news, and the media wants to sell their papers and get people coming to the website so they can make money off the ads. But don't be afraid by this. A 1.4 drop in property prices is minuscule. It's nothing. And just because it's the biggest thing in 2 years, don't let that scare you. Of course, we've had a really good, well, more than 2 years, we've had a really good 5, 10 years in property, right? But don't let these headlines fool you. Yes, the market is decreasing, and I personally think it's got a lot more to go. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw prices falling by 10 to 20%. Honestly, I would not be surprised. But whatever you're doing, as I said before, if you are flipping and you're engaging in short-term property strategies, then make sure you're buying at a really good price, because even if you're buying at 60, 70% of the market's value and prices fall 20%, you're still okay, right? So, it all depends on what your strategy is. If you're buying to, hold for the long term, for the 10, 20, 30, 40 years, then actually buying now doesn't really, it doesn't really matter, okay? Yes, prices are going to drop more and you could get it for even cheaper, but is that deal still going to be there in 6, 12, 18 months time? I don't know, right? So it's really important that you set your criteria. What works for you? What is a pull the trigger property investment? And do not change those milestones. Don't change the goalposts. And if your property transaction or a property deal meets these criteria, pull the trigger irregardless of the market conditions, okay? It's like you've got to define your trading strategy, and you can't, change your mind every couple of weeks. Of course, review your strategy maybe every quarter or every 6 months. But don't be changing your mind, on a daily basis. Stick to your strategy, carry it out, and you will be successful. So obviously we've got a slight decline in house prices, and this I think is caused by two main things. Obviously supply and demand. Demand has obviously fallen off. There were less investors in the market than what there were in 2021. Let's be honest, if you were in property in 2021 or even 2020, buying and finding a really good property was really difficult. There was lots of competition. Sometimes it was hard just to get a viewing booked in, right? So a lot of that demand has fallen off, and that's because of a few reasons. Obviously, interest rates have increased, and they seem really high now, but actually they're not that high in the grand scheme of things. They just seem relatively high. In fact, rates, as I'm filming this video, December 2022, I think they're not too bad. They're reasonable. They're just above the 5% mark for buy-to-let limited company mortgages, which is really where you should be at when you're forecasting your deals to make sure deals stack up and deals work, okay? Also, stress tests, the fact that stress test has been increased, in the past 6 months means that, again, all these property deals and transactions that could have gone through can no longer go through. So there's the fall in demand as a result. There are certain strategies in property that aren't that profitable or just not feasible anymore because of these higher stress tests. So if you're buying lower yielding properties, again, they may not hit the stress test, they may not hit the coverage, and as a result, that's just not a viable option for you at maybe a 75% loan to value, and in fact maybe you've got to step down to 60% loan to value to make that happen, which means you're putting more cash in and your return on investment is generally less. But that being said, if it's a great deal and it hits your criteria, don't be afraid to go for it. So let's come on to supply. We've just spoken about demand. So supply is an interesting one, right? I think supply is stayed the same roughly. Now we're entering, the festive period in December 2022, and this is when supply drops. People, they take a step back over Christmas. And, they either halt their property search or they're not really thinking about property. Maybe they're not thinking about selling the property. And as a result, there's less supply in the market. There's also less demand, right? A lot of people don't tend to sell around Christmas. But once New Year comes, New Year, New Me, a lot of people start listing their properties then. So the supply will pick back up in January and certainly for February. So that's something to bear in mind on the demand side. Now, what I've seen in auctions in the past couple of months, I think really since about September, is they've been absolutely massive. The supply has just gone off the scale. I mean, there's every single property going in the auctions since September, and I think the reason behind this is landlords are getting quite scared with rates going up, and they're looking just to exit and get out and cash out and move on to whatever they're moving on to. And that's why I think the supply in the auction categories is just so vast. I mean, every day I see so many auction properties listed just in my area alone, and it's just absolutely outstanding. What I'd say to people, thinking about buying property right now is check the auctions, because there's a huge supply. Demand won't be as great as it is now in December 2022, but coming on to January, coming on to February, New Year, New Me, I bet you that demand's going to pick up. Even though rates are going up, that demand will pick up and more people will come into the industry, okay? Right, let's get back to the office now.
Okay, so that's where we are with the current market, the current UK property market. But here's my take on things. For me, if you're buying a property at the right price, irregardless of the market conditions and the fact that we're actually entering a recession and prices are going to go down even further, if you're buying a property at the right price, A, you're de-risking the investment, but B, you've got such a large margin of safety and a large margin of error that if prices do fall further, which I think they will, then actually you're somewhat protected, okay? So providing you can actually buy a genuine discount to today's market value and protect yourself by buying at a good discount, so if prices go down, say 10, 15, 20%, you're still protected, then why wouldn't you buy today, right? So that's where I am, and that's where my logic is. So, don't just stop buying now because prices are falling and you think you can get a better deal in 12, 18 months, something like that. Another little take on this is let's take it one step further. We always want options, okay? We'll be successful if we have options. And what I mean by that is, let's just say we're buying at a good discount in today's market and the prices are continuing to fall, and they will fall further, let's be honest, right? But, if we're buying, say, at 70% of today's market value, then that gives us a nice safety, okay? And that gives us options. We're not just stuck with one option of retaining this property or selling this property at a loss. We've actually got several options. So if we're buying at 70%, maybe we've got 2 or 3 options that we can actually exercise on. So the first is obviously just to keep the property and rent it out, and we're holding on to it. The second, well, if we're buying at 70% market value, we could just try and sell it on straight away. Maybe we're selling it on for 85% of the market's value. Again, we're giving it still at a discount to someone, but we're actually just pocketing that difference. So again, if you have options, that's absolutely great in property. You want a strategy A, a strategy B, and a strategy C. If you've just got a strategy A and you're kind of narrowed down and you can only carry out one option with the price you've agreed to purchase this property for, think again, right? We want various options, we want various exits, because we want to de-risk this investment, because things do happen in property, and if something happens and narrows down your exit from 3 options to 2, you will still be making money. Okay, another really important point to note is, if you're a landlord or an investor that holds property for the long term and you have no intention to sell in the short or medium term, well, does it actually matter if you're buying property now and property prices go down 5 or 10%? Because actually, if you work out that difference in return over that 20, 30, 40 years, it's absolutely negligible, okay? It's absolutely nothing at all. You're looking at 1% maximum in terms of your internal rate of return over that 20, 30, 40 years. So actually, it's completely irrelevant, really, if you're trying to maximize that deal and get the best possible price for that property and try to time the market. You're actually going to probably end up making less money, and you'll be doing far less deals, so your volume will be less as well. So actually, if you're actually holding, your primary aim in property is to grow a portfolio, hold the portfolio and pass it down to your family and pass it down to your children, and you're going to be holding these properties for 30, 40 years, well, actually, a 1.4% decrease in the property price, which I think Nationwide quoted, isn't going to make a difference whatsoever, okay? Now, there was some more news that were published today, I think by Halifax, saying that the price of property decreased, I think it was 2.1 or 2.3%, something like that. So what we're seeing now in November is a decrease between 1.5% to 2%, okay, which is, okay. And again, if you're buying for the long term, this is nothing to be concerned about. Now, I want to give a little example of a deal that's actually available today that I'm involved in. I offered on the property, I couldn't get it myself, but because I've actually done a fair amount of due diligence on the property, and because my friend who's selling it is the agent, I'm trying to help him out, okay? So here's the opportunity that's available. Now, this will be gone by the time this video is published, but I just want this example to be demonstrated to show that actually, even in a sluggish and a downturn, you can still make money in property. So this property is valued at £120,000, and that's a conservative valuations. Recent sales in this particular block have been north of 120,000 in the past 1 or 2 years, okay? And now this property they need £95,000 to make this sale happen. That's what the vendor needs, okay? So you're getting, roughly speaking, around a 20% discount to the market value, which is absolutely great, okay? So the nice thing about this property also is the rental income. It's going to give you a gross yield of around 11%, because this property will rent somewhere between £850 and £900 per month. And this deal is available today, in a market that is still somewhat competitive, not as what competitive as what it used to be. So, if you're actually buying this and prices go down 20%, which, could be a worst case scenario, it could even be possible. I think it may happen, but are they going to go down more than that? I'm not too sure. I don't think so, who knows what's going to happen though. So the worst case scenario, if that does happen, well, okay, you've kind of broken even in terms of equity in the property, okay, because you purchased it at 95, it's come down to 95, but you're still getting really good rental income in that meantime, okay? But actually, if you hold this property for 5 years, where prices I would have hoped would stabilise at the bare minimum, and you selling this property at £120,000, well, all of a sudden you're realising that nice equity in the property, which is, is the difference between 120 and 95, so £25,000 you can take out profit from that deal. And of course, in those 5 years, you're making rental profits, right? So, when you actually combine the sale in 5 years plus the rental profits you're making in those 5 years, it's actually not a bad investment, okay? You struggle to find investments for sale at a gross 11% yield, even, now in today's market, okay? So this is why, actually, by buying at the right price, irregardless of the market conditions, you can always make money in property, and it's always a good idea to. Now, would I purchase property at market rates today? No, probably not. Be conscious about doing this, right? Are properties going to appreciate in value in the next couple of years? I highly doubt that. I've seen people trying to sell deals on saying that, oh yes, this property is going to appreciate 5% for the next 2 years. Absolutely, I'm not going to swear, but absolute rubbish. That's not going to happen. People need to be realistic with their capital appreciation figures going forward. I don't think things are going to appreciate in the next couple of years. If anything, they're going to go down, okay? So I really want you to be careful when you're putting together your figures. Be conservative. You'd much rather be pleasantly surprised in those 2 years' time than be disappointed, okay? So, don't buy property at market value. Get a good discount. Buy it below market value. Maybe if you're getting an 80%, 70% deal, then that's pretty good, I think, in my opinion. If you can get less than that, I recently got a 60% deal. This was in actually summer 2022. Then absolutely great. You're really de-risking yourself there. And actually, if prices come down 20%, well, hey, who absolutely cares, because you're still actually up on that property, okay? So a bit of a ramble today, a bit of my opinions in terms of where we are in the markets and what I do and how I'm currently investing and how I'm looking to acquire more property. So in a nutshell, really, it's all about buying at the right price. You want to be buying at the right price, and that right price may be different to what your price is to what my price is, okay? Some people may be happy buying at, say, 90% of the market value. Others like me, I want to get to that 60 to 75%. That's my sweet spot, and that's where I like to operate in. And this can be done by having really good relationships with agents. They know, they like you, they trust you, you've done business before, they're credible, you're credible, and they know that the offer you're put, you're going to stick to it, you're going to be a man or woman of your word and carry out and complete on that transaction. So to summarise, should you buy property in the UK? Yes, of course, definitely do. If you're getting it at the right price, I highly encourage you to keep searching on property. Do not pause your property search. You know, a lot of investors have paused their search, but you know, this is an opportunity for you to get properties at a really good value. So if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do consider subscribing. As you know, I'm giving away a free flight to a lucky subscriber chosen at complete random once we hit 10,000 subscribers. That's right, 10,000. So, you know, help me and show me a bit of love by subscribing to the channel, and I'll help you. I'll be taking you on a flight around Yorkshire, and you'll be having an amazing experience. It's a very serene, calming experience flying in an aircraft. So, you know, please help me and I'll help you. I really hope you've enjoyed the video and you've got value from it, and enjoy your day.